Welcome to Alzheimer's Speaks Radio. I'm your host, Lori Lavine, and I'm so excited that you're joining us today. We are going to have a fascinating conversation as usual as we learn from people all around the world at all ages and stages of life. Stay tuned as we shift our dementia care from crisis to comfort.
Here we go. What you think about, you will bring about dementia change. We will.
Well, hi, everyone, and welcome to Alzheimer's Speaks. I'm your host, Lori Lavine, and I'm thrilled you can be with us today. We are going to be having a conversation about caring plans for you, your family, and your money. How do you protect that? And we're going to be talking with Raymond Lavine. He is an extended care benefits advisor, which means he advises and designs long-term care benefits for families and long-term benefits for companies as well. So before I introduce you to him, I always like to have you check out alzheimersspeaks.com. We have tons of free resources as well as our sister company, Dementia Map. So with no further ado, let's go ahead and meet Raymond. Well, Raymond, I'm so excited to have you on the show today. So thanks for taking the time. This is a really important topic, long-term care, managing your money. Trying to pick and choose and prepare for that is complicated, needless to say. So if you don't mind sharing with our audience a little bit about who's Raymond and how'd you get into this business?
Well, that's a short question, and I'll give you a long answer. No, I won't. I'll summarize. First of all, I'm honored to be on your program. You are a legend. We talked about it before we recorded, but you're a legend. You've been doing this a long time. You've talked to a lot of people. I'm sure you probably have helped a lot of people or given people insight into a lot of areas of what happens if you need caregiving, or what happens if you become ill, or what happens if your brain has an issue. I usually call it cognitive. I know most people defer to Alzheimer, but that's a specific disease. You can have all kinds of cognitive issues. Probably this morning, I probably had a few cognitive issues of forgetting things. But like most people, guests that you've had, how do we get to where we're going, or where Raymond is now? I got here. I've been in financial services for many years. I've been involved in commercial banking. I've been involved in mortgage banking. I even did executive search for a while. I've been in property management, but one way or another, it's always been somewhere in financial services, working with people, helping people with either insurance or money. And in the last a decade and a half, I've been strictly focused in long-term care benefits. I didn't want to be a wealth advisor. I didn't want to be a financial planner. I didn't want to be a life insurance agent. I didn't want to sell annuity. I didn't want to do a lot of things that might be related, because what I've learned in being in long-term care insurance is that there's a lot to know. And it's a lot more, and for me, it's a lot more fun to concentrate on what I really like and what I really understand and how it related to people, because it always seems to be changing. So it keeps me curious. It keeps me motivated, and I'm always learning something. So I'm at that age group where I know a lot of people that need caregiving. And even if they don't need caregiving, they should certainly think about it. But in my family, my parents, especially my father, needed caregiving for very long periods of time, 3 times in his life. And when I say long periods of time, I'm not talking about 2 months. I'm talking about a year and a half. On the last when he had his heart attack and he was actively dying, it took about 3 years, maybe 3.5 years. And it affected my mother because, and they both had success. When I say successful careers, they had satisfying careers. They're both lawyers, doing very well. And it messes up your life when you need caregiving for both people. It isn't just the care. I've read that story, and I use it. Of people always ask, how if Raymond is well, they might say, "How's Raymond?" But they never say, "Well, how's my wife Barbara? How's she doing? What's she going through?" Because believe me, there have been times in my life where I've had some severe health issues. Um, and they might say, ask me, "How am I doing?" I say, "Fine." And let me tell you, Barbara's worried about me. So I always include my wife to say she's part of what happens to me. So one way or another, if you don't think that you've been involved in caregiving, sometimes, it's also one of the interesting things that I've learned being in this business is how many people that I've spoken to that have been in caregiving, and I define caregiving, you're helping somebody else. You're not here helping your child. I mean, you're helping, your spouse, your partner, family member, parents, and and I'll say, "Well, you're doing caregiving," and they'll say, "I am." They just don't, because when you're actively helping somebody, you are caregiving. That is caregiving. If you take them to the doctor, that is caregiving. If you're helping them with their medications, that is caregiving. If you're making them a sandwich because they're not, for whatever reason, they're not able to make meals for themselves, that is caregiving. So what I have come to understand. I'm not always sure I've learned it, but understand is that sometimes we do things and we don't know we're doing it, or we just don't know the word for it. But it's caregiving, and so um, as I said, my parents have been involved in caregiving. My wife worked with her family. Um, where her mother had lung cancer and spent months helping her. And then her father, and this is, especially of yours, he had Alzheimer's. I mean, he was beyond even cognitive. He had Alzheimer's, and he was in a care center, and it was expensive. And had he not died when he died, he would have been wiped out financially. It was that severe. So that's another reason that, I have people always say, that I'm passionate about, but I just don't want people to go broke. And I'll also bring this up is that when I first got started, people would talk about Medicaid, and people would talk about social services, and people would talk about, all the things that, maybe social services, you want to label for government programs, but social services. But in 2026, you don't want to be poor in America. You really don't. And you don't want to think that you're going to rely on social services because it may or may not be there. Even yeah, here's another thing, I'm a veteran, I'm an Army veteran. And people say to me, "Well, I'll have, benefits." And I'll say, "You sure?" "Oh yeah, I served my country, I served my time." So did I. I said, "Let me just bring something to your attention, is that you might be eligible for it. I might be eligible for it, but you're not entitled." And that's the other thing with social services. You might be eligible, but you got to qualify financially, based on your health, what services, are in your area. And the other thing that I also say, and I mean this sincerely. I'm not just saying that because I've had to personally experiences that Americans always say we like. Our autonomy. We like to make our own decisions. We want to do what we want to do. Okay, fair enough. But if you don't have a plan, and hope is, I always say hope is not a plan. So if you want to make sure that your caregiving and your your finances, your family doesn't go through chaos, what you want to do is you want to have a plan in advance, because if you don't have a plan in advance, and you want social services, who do you think is going to make the decision about how it will be paid for, and who will be involved, whether they come to your home or in your care center? And I'll give you the answer. It isn't the family, and it isn't the caregiver. It's somebody else that's going to be making those decisions. And so what I want to do is help people to have a plan so that they can make decisions good decisions of what they want to do for their caregiving. You want to be at home, be at home. Have a plan for it, and have the money to do it. Because don't ex you might expect your family to be involved, but that's a it's sort of an overuser, but that's a task rather than burden. It's a task on them, and depending on the situation, they may not be always be up to the task. They
Okay.
really won't. And what does that mean? Well, if you have an older couple, maybe the spouse or partner as incapable because they have their own issues. Maybe if you have kids and if they like you and you like them, I mean, if you have, it doesn't just say I have a family. I mean, do you have a family that that you can talk to, that you have a relationship with? Because that's expensive too. People always say to me, "Well, Raymond, I don't want to spend the money on long-term care because I want to go on vacation. I want this, I want that. So I don't want to spend the money." Okay, don't spend the money. So if your children, if they have to give up, their career for a while, what do you think that's going to cost them? I'll give you an answer. Supposing they make $100,000 a year, or whatever, 150, they're millions, or they make 50,000. That's the cost of what it's going to cost somebody something, and that's a lot to a lot of people, including me. That's a lot of money, and I don't like wasting money. And I don't like, and if you can, for a smaller amount, just a 0.5% or 1% of your income, that you can buy a plan that will take care of a lot of these things. What would you rather do? Spend 200, depending on your age and the situation. Would you rather spend 250, $300 a month in premium, and then get 6, 7, 8,000 a month? Or do you want to use your own money, which, by the way, is all taxable, where if you own a plan, it's not taxable. So, we're in the season of tax planning. You want to spend, it's how do you want to keep your money? How do you want to spend your money? So that's a long answer to a lot of to sort of how I got into this and how I think about it.
Okay. So before we dive in too deep, I always like to ask people if they've been personally touched by any form of dementia in their own family or circle of friends.
Yes, my wife's father, who was actually he was prominent in his field. He was a writer, photographer, hunter. Grits Gresham was, and he in his, well, probably started in his 70s, started to get dementia. And it was severe enough that he couldn't be homebound. He had to be in a care center, and it was expensive. It was very expensive, and it took family finances to and his own estate to pay for it. And again, as I said, had he not died when he did, it would have really crippled his estate financially. And
Yeah,
so,
I've been looking for, a family member, and the prices are just kind of crazy. And they happen to have diabetes. And if you've got diabetes, that puts you in a whole other category. And it would be minimum, of $10,000 a month.
yeah,
And she's still, capable of getting dressed, and, she can even make some minor meals and things like that. Very forgetful, but um, still has good social skills and can engage in a conversation. And people just don't realize what it's going to be. And it's a very black and white. Plus, there's add-on costs I found now too, where a lot of communities are charging for an assessment to see exactly what category you're going to be put in. And they want you to commit to like a $2,000 fee up front. And one of them even said, well, if we can take care of her, then then we're good, and that money will just apply towards your first payment. But if you choose to go somewhere else, then we keep it. And I said, you know what? I'm pretty sure that's illegal. because how can a person make a decision when they don't know what category they're going to fall in? I'm in Minnesota here where we have a lot of ruckus going on right now, but I wanted to call the attorney general, but I'm like, oh, okay, there's a lot of other things going on, because I do not think that that is legal or fair on any level at all. You know, people should not be required to put money down when they don't even have all the details of possibilities. And I found staff would say one thing and an assessment would come out very different. And so it's really hard. It's very frustrating. And Minnesota used to have, in my opinion, exceptional care. And we have a few places out there, but most places, I have to be honest, the way staffing is, and I hear this all over the country, people aren't comfortable because it's not consistent anymore in terms of delivery styles in so many places. And I know a lot of people who work for communities are going to be mad at me saying that, but I talk to a lot of people around the world, and that's what I hear very consistently. So it's not just my bias. That's what people are seeing and feeling. And like you said, some people want to stay home. So how do you manage that? So, you've given us kind of a lot of little bits and pieces, but can you define for us and just kind of summarize what's the difference between long-term care insurance and how does that differ from your normal health insurance and Medicare and Medicaid? Everyone thinks, well, I'm on Medicare, I'm fine. It's not a big deal. And I have found it's anything but simple. Going through that process, my parents had done pre-planning, but they did not do long-term care, and they did it, 5 years prior to needing it, which was really helpful so they could protect some of their assets. But oh my gosh, the paperwork and the organization it takes to have to submit that stuff is unbelievable. And you want to avoid that if you can, because I came in with a two-wheeler in a couple of boxes of all their paperwork. And the woman's like, oh my gosh, the only thing I didn't have was my dad's VA discharge paper. She's like, I've never had somebody come in with all this information, but it took me forever, to do that. And you need to actually go through all those finances and stuff I would imagine, to know about what can you afford for a plan. So it just defined for us what long-term, care insurance covers and how it differs from regular health insurance or Medicare and stuff.
You have another hour and a half?
Nope. We got to summarize, Raymond.
Oh, I love that. I love that word, summarize. You brought up a lot of points. Medicaid is it's part of Social Security, Social Security Act of 1935. Where you had no, it was no, I'm sorry, 65. Where you had Medicare and Medicaid. Medicare was for any person that reaches 65. Actually, it could be even earlier, depending on your health issue. Would get a Part A and Part B. Medicare was Part A is hospital, Medicare Part B is doctors, and that's your health insurance. Now, if you before Medicare, you get it qualify for Medicare. You're on a health plan. Usually, when people used to work full time for companies, they used to have a health plan, and they were usually comprehensive. Now they're sort of comprehensive, and then you have to worry about who pays what in the premium. But the general idea is you have healthcare insurance. Healthcare insurance pays for doctors and hospitals if you get sick or ill, or whatever you go in for routine examinations and annual physicals, things like that. That's your health insurance. Medicare, same thing, just a different plan. And then Then beyond your A and B, then you have Medicare Advantage or Medicare Supplement, which then pays for whatever Medicare A and B doesn't pay for. Medicaid is a social services plan that if you don't have insurance, you can't afford insurance, Medicaid will pay for that, and they have their rules and their eligibility. Again, you might be eligible, but but you're not entitled. So that's Medicaid. So it's different forms of health insurance. Now, Medicaid also. Not only for your health care, but it will also pay if you need caregiving services and you have no assets. And I mean, I'm not saying you're poor, but I'm not saying, but you really don't have much. And there's certain things that will be excluded, your home and things. And, there used to be a thing where everybody would put all their estate in a trust so they could get on Medicaid, which is it's a lousy idea. In fact, just something you didn't ask. I asked a Medicaid attorney, what, because you always say, well, I'll just go on Medicaid and then I'll save, I'll let the government pay for my care services. I said, just out of curiosity, if I go in and I want a Medicaid planning and, elder care attorney, what does it cost? He says $15,000. Now, I don't know if it's gone up up or down. So in order to bypass this, I get to pay $15,000 in order to do that. That's not, for some people it's not a big deal, but for others, that's 15,000. So if you don't have, the interesting thing is if you have 15,000 for that, then why don't you have want to get a care plan or arrange your assets that you can pay for care. But anyway, now then, what is long-term care insurance? It's health insurance, and depending what it is, the kind of plan. The traditional is the traditional health insurance plan. It doesn't pay. And this is also something that people, don't understand when they're applying for, put in for to be covered for long-term care insurance. They think, oh, I'm in an accident or I'm recovering from an illness, therefore I qualify for long-term care insurance. You don't. It's specific insurance to pay for not what your health. It's what your health has done to you, not that you have a health issue. It's what has it done to you that where you will need certain services, eating, bathing, continence, transferring, cognitive issues, enough where it says that you need care because the illness has done things to you where you need somebody to help you with your daily activities. If you say, I want to put in the paperwork because I want my long-term care benefits, you have to qualify for that. You have to have a doctor's certificate that says, you're going to need care for, at least 3 months. And here are the things that you need, because you're going to need help with bathing, you need help with transferring, you're going to need somebody to drive you to the doctor. It's those things that happen to you that then you'll qualify. And sometimes people you can apply and maybe you can wait, but that's the usual misconception, and where people complain, say, well, I bought this plan and it doesn't work. They wouldn't pay, so they get all the influencers to talk about how horrible long-term care insurance is because somebody didn't get their benefits. And the answer is they didn't. They weren't ready yet, or they didn't understand, and there are situations where if you do apply and you don't get it, is to ask somebody to say, look, I need help to do this, not just the doctor, but there are people out there. I mean, or you can ask me to say, look, I need help, whether you're a client or not. I'll give you the people that can help you with that.
Well, I know it's expensive. I know the language is confusing. I had one guy in one of my support groups years ago. He cared for his wife and then got to the point where she needed to be placed, and he took them to courts I can't remember which long-term care insurance it was, but they were saying they weren't going to cover memory care because that's not the verbiage in the contract, because they took the contract out before memory care existed. They had nursing home coverage, and they used different language, and he ended up winning. And so part of the problem is, the language of the contract, what it covers. I know earlier you had mentioned for, $200 or $300 a month, instead of spending it on maybe an attorney that's going to cost you $15,000, who's going to do more than just your long-term care. They're going to do your health care directive. They're going to do your power of attorney. Well, I just did the math on that. And so for $200 a month, that covers you for like 6.25 years. For the $300 a month, that's just a little over 4 years. But what I hear from people is that amount of money would be at a pretty young age, and it typically goes up as you age. Is that correct?
That's right. There are two things that, the older you are, the more the premiums. The other thing is, think of it as a retirement planning. If you wait till you're 55 to have a retirement plan, how much you're going to have to put in more money because you don't have as much time for it to grow. If you start in your 20s or 30s, you can put in less, but it will grow. So for premiums, it's higher. And also because you have to buy more in benefits because you're going to need it in less time. At some point, just like on your car, the lights start blinking.
Mm-hmm.
And so the premiums will be higher because you're older and you have to buy more in benefits. If you start 15 years earlier, then you don't need as much in benefits, and also you have a inflation rider, a COLA rider in there that it will grow just the same as you are in a retirement plan. The big deal is health assessment. Where are you in your health? And so the earlier you can get a plan, and there are ways you can even stack it, where even if you do have health issues, you can still stack it to get other benefits if you need. And I'll talk about that later if you ask me. It's your health. You just never know when you get into an accident. You never know when you have an illness. You never know when it's neurological, and you never know. Sometimes you never know. Cognitively, because I mean, if once you have a cognitive issue, I can still get you benefits if under certain circumstances. But for mainstream plans, you're no longer, you're out of the game. You are just out of the game. So the earlier you do it, especially if in your family you have pre-existing conditions or in your DNA, that's going to happen. That's the best time to get a plan. Even if you think, look, don't get, if you want to get a car or something, okay, rather than spending $800 a month, in either the leasing or the financing, get something else, and you use the money that you were going to pay for that for your long-term care insurance. Because I'm telling you, it is a great investment. It is an excellent investment on something that most people like themselves. Who doesn't want to invest in themselves? Who doesn't want to invest in saying, for their own self-interest is invest in yourself. You might like it.
Now, I know that there's a big misconception when you talked about kind of those home health care type items. It's not typically covered for dressing and, someone just coming in, maybe helping with meds and things like that. I know even when people go into the hospital, they'll send them home and they might have a little support for a short period of time. They might have, physical therapy or OT or a nurse stopping in, but that's pretty minimal, maybe once or twice a month or once or twice a week. And then they kind of wean you down over time. And it's not for a long period of time, where people, I think family members think, well, they'll just be somebody there always with them during this time, but families really have to step up to that. Do they have policies change where they cover the in-home stuff now, or is it just being placed?
Ever since I've been in the business, um, if you get a plan from me, it's comprehensive. Wherever it is you go, except out in the street or something. I mean, you're covered. And then I'd suggest you get a tracker if you have a tendency to wander off. But all the plans that that I recommend to people, it's comprehensive. Now they do have, where it could be either strictly home care or it could be care center. And if you're gonna make a choice, my personal thing is pick the home. And if you can modify and things, you can stay at home a long time. I'll give you a direct example. My mother died a couple of years ago. She was 103. Now she was in certain circumstances where she was very affluent. I mean, we're not talking about 4 million. I mean, we're talking about 30, 40 times that much. She lived in a very nice condo that had, supports system of people that could help her, and that was an exception. But the point is, she could stay at home till she died. In fact, she died at home. Um, you know, and if you modify your home, there are a lot of things you can do, incrementally. If you modify your home, you have guardrails, you have ramps if you need it, lighting, take care of the carpeting. In your bathroom, do you want to put in a walk-in bathroom or a walk-in shower? There are a lot of, incremental things you do that if you're set up and you have the home modifications, you can probably stay there forever. And, if you have cognitive, at least what I'm seeing is that, there are a lot of sensor things that, you can install in your home, so that if you do wander off, or, maybe they're automatic door locks, there are a lot of things that you can do that somebody could stay at home. Why do people go to a care center? Well, there are lots of reasons. One is because sometimes the family wants to get rid of you, but that isn't really funny. It's because either people you don't have the family members don't know how to do the caregiving, don't want to do the caregiving, can't do, it's physically, it's emotional. They have other things to do, so they'll put you in a care center. Uh, but care centers also have, equipment and facilities that you could have at home, and more and more of these things are more portable, beds and electronics and all kinds of things that might have been overly, that you couldn't afford or too heavy. You could actually have it at home. You just got to plan in advance. And if you have, enough money, enough resources, that you can bring in caregivers, especially those if you have cognitive that have a certification and experience in caregiving. You can stay at home a long, long time. Now, if you can't, if you have to have those pull devices, to get you out of bed. Again, you can have it at home, but if you can't afford it or you can't get it, I mean, that's why you're in a care center. The other thing I say to people, what the ratio is for caregiving at home versus the ratio of caregiving in a care center. At home, the ratio is at least a minimum of 1 to 1. I mean, assuming you have family or friends, people that like you. Of course, if you don't have anybody and nobody likes you, then maybe a care center. But in most situations, if you have a spouse, a partner, if you have a family, if you have friends, if you have social skills where you have friends, the ratio is at least 1 to 1, minimum 1 to 1, maybe 1 to 3, maybe 1 to 4. But if you're in a care center, who knows? Might be 1 to 5, 1 to 10, 1 to 20. Who knows? And when you want something, you gotta press the button, and maybe they'll show up 20 minutes, half an hour, an hour. And if you're Raymond Lavine, I'm not waiting an hour for anything. I want somebody to help me now. I don't want to wait around. And I would surmise that most people are like that, especially if if you're in pain, you need to go to the bathroom. There are a lot of personal things and immediate things that you need. You just can't wait around.
I get that, but I'm going to give you a little pushback there. Let's say you have a spouse, and I mean, there's a lot of people that live alone, and you had talked about you can get all these things, and they can stay home, but in most cases, you need extra assistance with somebody checking on you, and there's the emotional and physical wear and tear on that person, just the mental health of being able to get out of the house because the ratio is very high for caregivers passing before their loved one because of the extra amount of stress. So I really think people, we never know what the needs are going to be with somebody too, and it might start out real simple and then get much more complicated. So if they can get care at home, can that transfer over, or are these separate kinds of plans? One's for home modification and one's for being placed if you need it at a later date.
Home modification, they'll pay a certain amount only for home. If you go to a care center, they have all their, equipment and stuff and staffing.
No, I get that. I'm just saying if your needs totally change and now you're going from a little home modification with some bars and maybe getting rid of carpet and going with, a flat surface and a toilet that's higher or whatever it might be, to actually needing physical 24-hour care, is that does the same plan cover, or are they totally separate plans for those two different coverages?
It's if the plans that I design for people, it covers all of that. It'll pay for a certain percent, amount of money for home modifications, and it will pay for, depending on your plan, because that's also the issue. What did you want your plan to do? And look, this is always the great issue with insurance, is that when you want the insurance, you need to use the insurance, you always want more.
Mm-hmm.
And you want the higher deductible that you have, you're not as happy about paying the higher deductible. You wish you had the lower deductible, but it's a ratio of then the premium. Now the way I design plans is, I don't want people to have a plan and it affects their lifestyle and income. I don't want to, where they have to say, do they get, can they buy prescriptions? Can they eat? Can they live a life? I mean, I don't want it where, the premium is such a burden that, that they're making those kind of choices. I really don't. But what I do want to do is that you have the plans that I suggest or recommend, it may not cover everything. And, you have to look at they say, well, how do you decide? Well, some of it is, your motivation. Some of it is, your experience of caregiving, your assets, your family. There are a lot of factors in it. Is there longevity? Because, just because, so there are a variety of factors, and some of it is guessing. I mean, I don't have a better, a better way of saying it. Sometimes you just sort of have to guess. But as I said, it may be, how you feel about, your caregiving. Because so, but it may be that it doesn't, supposedly it covers 75 or 80%. And then, maybe then the other 20%, maybe it may be family and friends, maybe it's your own assets, but at least 80% is covered. And again, it's comprehensive. It's either your home or in a care center, depending on, what is the situation. But as I said, most people, and because of the kind of equipment that's available and the surveillance and all the other things. And look, maybe it might be in my lifetime where if I have to give up the keys, I'll say, so what? I've got either Uber, Lyft, or I got a self-driving car. I can get in the car and say, take me to the doctor. Hopefully it doesn't take me to the beach if it really takes me to the doctor, or maybe I do want to go to the beach. I'm not sure. So maybe eventually, we'll have, they've also talked about it at the Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas. They were showing, about robots that are doing things. And I don't know if, I don't know how reliable it is, but this is the era we're in: artificial intelligence, robotics. cameras, motion things. And I've had that personal experience. I know people that have had parents at home and they have a monitor. So if somebody isn't moving, they'll be notified and they'll call. So there are a lot of surveillance things that are available in the 21st century that you didn't have 20, 30 years ago.
Yeah. And again, you have to have those conversations about being watched, and being monitored, and how do people feel about that? Because some people are very adamant where they don't want a camera, but the sensors,
Lori, you're right. You're right. You don't want to be watched, but it doesn't it doesn't matter anymore. You go out in public, you're monitored. I mean, you have cameras everywhere. And then on the internet, have you ever had? My wife had that where she was commenting about something, and then something showed up on her phone about whatever it was. So the only thing I'm thinking is, no matter what, even if you don't like the idea, I'll give my phrase: you're not alone anymore.
yeah, I think it's different when it enters the house, how people perceive that though too.
Yeah.
Of like, well, I don't want to, I feel like I can't take a nap, or they're going to monitor how often I'm going to the bathroom. And even though those things can be used in a helpful fashion.
And you're right. You don't want people to be invasive. You really don't. But the reality is, you sit on the potty and you fall off, or you have, I mean, it happens, and they fall off, and then you have a broken hip or an arm or something. So, at what point do you decide where you don't want to be invasive? And the one time that you don't, then they fall off, and then they don't find you for an hour and a half. Should you have been monitored? Again, these are personal choices.
Well, and there's all different types of monitor. The Apple Watches, you'll fall and they'll call for emergency, with you. That's different than having a camera watching you, or, every time the door opens. I don't care if it's the fridge or the bedroom or the bathroom, or those are different. I mean, there's just all different kinds of ones, and they're going to continue to change. One of the concerns that I've heard from people, because I know a lot of these companies have gone out of business, how do you know that companies will be there when you need it? Because the industry itself had changed, because the boomers are becoming of age and everyone's knocking at the door going, hey, I want my benefits, and the costs have gone up so much, for things as well. So what do you say to people that are a little nervous about that?
Don't be. And the reason, and I've been through that, whole cycle. How do I talk about it and summarize it? Is that no, insurance is regulated in each state. It's regulated, and they make sure that you have the reserves, and they look at what policies, and even though companies have stopped offering plans, doesn't mean that the insurance company went out of business. Unum, Metropolitan Life. I mean, big companies, Allianz, big companies. They didn't go out of business. They just stopped offering, long-term care plans, because they just didn't see it as they couldn't. I'll summarize. They didn't make money at it. They couldn't make money at it anymore, so they stopped selling it. But look, car companies do that too. They sell them, and then if people don't buy them, then they change to something else, so they don't go out of business. They also have just like the FDIC, they have reserved money, and if a company, and it's never happened, got into a situation, usually it'll be another insurance company will buy out the book of business and just own it. And a lot of times, and this is I'll give you a direct example. Most people that have a mortgage on their home are trustee. In other words, they own money on their home.
Yep.
Used to be you had the Main Street Bank, and they would hold your mortgage, and pay your monthly payment home payment to them. Most times now they package it and send it off, and now your mortgage is in la la land. You have no idea who owns it. But there's companies that will process the loan. So you send it to, and even if it has, the Main Street Bank, it's going to some home processing company that's sending it off to, somebody, some bondholder somewhere. So uh, and it does happen with a long-term care insurance. I'm not going to minimize it. A lot of times your premium will go to Unum, or it'll go to Allianz, and then it goes to some processing company that takes care of it. But all of them, all the ones that I know, still have customer service. You call customer service. They have websites. So it hasn't gone away. So if somebody influencer or some wealth advisor says, well, this is awful. Okay, fine. Then don't buy a home, because banks have gotten into trouble with real estate. Don't buy a car, because cars have problems. So don't buy a car. I haven't noticed anybody not wanting to buy a car. Well, actually, that's not true. Younger people don't, because the expensive, they'll use Uber or Lyft, and also the insurance. So all the things that people will say how awful something is. I mean, there are millions of people that will say how wonderful it is. We had a plan, they paid for it. All in all, it worked out well. What doesn't work out well is nobody wants to be have to think or be in caregiving. There's no fun in it. No fun in being ill. But I'll tell you what's not fun is if you feel invisible or you feel vulnerable. And the worst time that you feel vulnerable is when you have an illness or an accident. You feel you're most vulnerable, and also you're invisible, because most people don't see what you're going through. When do you see it happen? You go, when you're out in public, or you go to the doctor's office, or you go to one of the care centers. Then you're seeing lots of people that then they're more visible. The rest of the time, you don't know how sick people are, because you don't see them. But in an area I live in Gig Harbor, we have a lot of elder people. I don't know how that happened. I don't know how I got to be elderly, but at least in our area, most of the people, I would say, 1 in every 5 people is in a walker or cane, and and we're mobilitating around. There are more people that they need. They usually have their spouse or partner, helping them. So that, again, it's caregiving, but it's learning how to recognize it. And that's one of the things. Actually, I am grateful. I'm really grateful that being in this business, that it's given me the opportunity to know what to look for. I can look at it and say, hey, I can size this up, and it helps me too, because, as I said, Raymond Lavine does not want to be invisible, and I sure as hell don't want to be vulnerable. I really don't.
I don't think any of us do. One question I have is, and I've heard this recently, I've heard people say, oh, my long-term insurance, and I can't remember the name, but 2 or 3 people in one group said they were contacted by their long-term insurance that said, we'll give you a buyout on this. Have you heard that recently from some people? And they were getting everything that they paid in, but, not extra, it sounded like.
Well, I haven't personally, where they say, to do a buyout. And what that means is to say, supposing you put in 50,000 into they'll say, okay, fine, we'll either freeze the plan, and then if you need the care, you can use the 50,000, or hi, we'll wire you a check for 50,000, or put less expenses or something. And so so you get the money back, or you just keep the money in reserve, and you use whatever that money is available. Usually, it's the the policyholder that will do it. It's usually not the insurance company. Now, in the days, when you still had the premium increases, what could people do? Well, people could either lower the COLA, and that could lower the premium a lot, or sometimes they could say, all right, fine, I'll take less in benefits, but they keep the plan. There are three reasons why long-term care plans, you want to say the other side, was so successful is that the insurance carriers and the actuaries, those people that do all the math and then say I'm an actuary, is that uh, uh, during the home crisis in 2008, 2009, that messed up. They had to lower interest rates, so they couldn't get as much money on back as they had calculated. The other big reason is people were using it longer than they thought. Again, there was the expectation, oh, you'll be dead, and you'll need it for 2 years, and then you'll be dead, or a year and a half. You'll be dead, and then what they found out, people were living, doing on care for 2, 3, 4 years, and then for the big one is that insurance companies were hoping you'd cancel the plan, just like you do your life insurance and a lot of other plans. Oh, we don't need it anymore, so we'll cancel it. What did they find out? Especially as people had it for a long period of time, they said, "Hey, this is worth owning. We're not giving it up." So their lapse rates were 2%, 3%. It was almost nothing. So this is what panicked the insurance companies to say, "Hey, we have people that really like this, and now what do we do?" So they raise premiums. They've worked this out over the last 5, 6 years to stabilize premiums where it's not unpredictable. Things are a lot better. Also, health assessment and how they do it is a lot better. So things are a lot better, even though what people are telling them is 2014 or 2015, rather than what it is 10 years later. They're not up to date in what's happening. Talk to me and I'll get you up to date.
Okay, because the ones where they got the buyouts, that was just recent, just in the last, I don't know, 5 months.
Okay, I haven't heard it. So but Lori, if you say it, I'll believe it.
I believe them. And it was funny when one person brought it up, then a couple others popped in too. Because there's not a ton of companies that offer long-term insurance as well. So it's important to have somebody who knows the ins and outs.
Interesting you say that. You're right. You're right that a lot of companies got out of it, but there are a lot of companies, especially for there are a lot of companies that have come back, Chubb and Allstate, and there are more companies that are offering long-term care benefits to companies, which is also a very good deal for companies to also add long-term care benefits to their benefit plans. So you're right that a lot of the traditional plans, they're still out there, but there are more companies that are offering hybrid plans, which is life insurance that has long-term care part of it, but also companies that are offering long-term care plans to companies. There are more and more companies that are coming back into the business because they think they can make money, and because and regretfully, people really need it. It's a good benefit, especially if let's say somebody's at 25 or 30 and they say, I don't want to spend $50 a month unless the company pays for it. I don't want to waste the money. I'd rather go out coffee or a trip or whatever. But it's a really good deal. It's a really good investment. Why? Even if you have a $2,000 month plan, 2,500, and let's say you have a 5% cost of living, and it's $50 a month. What do you think that plan's going to be in 50 years? I mean, it's going to be, you may never need to buy a plan, and for $50, that's a great investment. That's a great deal.
Mm-hmm. I know I took out not long-term insurance, but when I was like 14, my mom was really big on, women need to have their own credit and they have to be stabilized. And So at 14, I took out life insurance policy, and I still have it today. I'm 66, and it's amazing with that. I think back in the day, I was paying $15 a month or something, or 11 when I started, and but it was well worth it. So I think it's important to talk to somebody who knows this stuff. Now, if someone wants to make a claim, will you help them through the process? Because I've heard that can be a struggle too, because
That
people don't know the verbiage or what they need and things like that.
that that's true. That's true. It's like filing your taxes or something. Some people can do it themselves. Some people need help. I don't personally do it, but I can certainly recommend people, very good people, that will help you with it. You just have to, contact me and let me know, and I'll get you in contact with people that will help you make the claim.
Okay. And is that like a for a fee, or is that something that's just some people's jobs within the company, or?
It depends. There's some people that it's a fee, and it may be worth it. It may be they have a fee. There are others that say, well, we don't have a fee, but then it might be a back end fee where they'll do it, but then you're in their system. So somewhere or another, nobody's nobody's going to do it for free. But if it's a direct fee, then you pay for the service, you get what you want. Or if so it's sort of like a auto accident. Yeah, we'll be your attorney, but we're going to take 50%. So it can be both ways, and the person can decide if they want to pay a fee. Then if it's done, then they pay the fee. Or you go to somebody and they say no, it's no fee, but you might have to be in their system.
Okay. And then for you, do you only work in certain states, or can you work throughout the US? How does that work?
For my personal licenses, I'm licensed in most Western states. I'm not licensed east of the Mississippi. Um, but if you want somebody, and I'm not licensed, call me. I'll get you in contact with somebody that's very good. Now, if it's for a company, if somebody says, "Look, I'm in human resources," or I work for XYZ company, and gee, that would be a good idea, and I want to recommend it. Then I work with colleagues, and we can do it in any state. Or even people that work for companies that are offshore, and they're foreign countries, but they are United States citizens and they have offices in the United States. I can still get them a plan, even if the company is an American company.
Okay. Okay. Well, sounds good. Well, Raymond, people can go to your website. Do you want to give that out to them and
Sure.
any contact information?
Sure. It's www.lav, V as in Victor, INELTCINS.com. But there's more. If you go to the upper left-hand corner of the website, you can put in information to find out your longevity. And be honest about, and put in your lifestyle, and then it will tell you, what age you're likely to die, or you might say, well, look, if I do that, I'll probably need care, and it will also give how much care services would be. And if you want to, then you could send it to me, and then we could have a conversation about it. If you go to the lower right of my website, it used to be on websites you had the 20, 47, 48 frequently asked questions, and usually it doesn't ask the specific answer to whatever your question is. It'll sort of give you an idea. It's an AI generated. It's really cool. It's quite reliable. You can put in all kinds of questions about long-term care insurance, and it will give you answers. Now, here's the big deal. Everybody's going to say, well, how much is a long-term care insurance? What's the premium? How much does it cost? And it's a factor of how much you want, how long you want. Do you have a traditional? You have hybrid. There are various combinations. But it'll give you a general idea, because that's the first question. How much does it cost? But it varies based on the the kind of policy you get. But you can get a lot of that information on the website, and then when we talk, you'll have a better idea. The other thing is that health assessment is much improved than what it was 14, 15 years ago, much improved. And a lot sometimes the medical paperwork isn't as necessary because the things that they know. And also, I have subscriptions that I have that I can put in information to give an idea of saying uh, if what plans would be available, where you're more likely to get the plan. Because I mean, look, it's unfortunate for both me as the long-term care advocate and somebody that wants a plan that you get declined because they found something in your health history. So you get rated or declined, and then people aren't happy about that. So I have it isn't perfect. But but at least if you provide me as good a health assessment, and I have a digital health assessment form, the more information, then I have a better say. Look, if you do this, and there isn't anything else. In other words, you didn't lie about it, or you didn't, forget. And we all forget. I mean, if you asked me, 2 weeks ago, did I have a vaccine? Say, yeah, I think I did. You forget about stuff like that. But so long as it isn't, gee, I was diagnosed, I have a neurological, and I forgot to tell you. That's a big deal. Or, if you, or the severity of your diabetes, or, I mean, there might be things that if it's a big thing, it might be little things, you can't remember the surgery 15 years ago. Okay, that's okay.
Well, and I know like if you get a dementia diagnosis, once you have that, your premiums are going to skyrocket.
I'll stop you right there. There are no premiums because it's an automatic decline for
Mhm.
regular. However, if you have assets, you have an annuity, you have life insurance, I can get you a plan even if you have almost no health, cognitive or some other, that I can still get you a plan where you put the money into a hybrid annuity, and it'll leverage the money. For every dollar you put in, you might get $3 back. Uh, but you got to have assets to do it that we're transferring tax free, of course, 1030 exchange. That you can still have a plan, so that rather than paying the taxes on the asset you have, you're transferring it, and then it transfers back to you in care benefits. But you're leveraging your money. For every one, you're getting $2, $3, $4 back. For certain people that have those kind of assets, it's a good deal, because you're not, they'll say, well, I'm losing the money, I'm putting it in an annuity. No, you're not, because whatever money you don't use, the beneficiary will get whatever isn't used in the policy, so you're not losing anything. Some people, well, if I put it in, I want, I'll lose my money. Well, in a traditional plan, that was true. They would say use it or lose it. That was true. But personally, look, I've owned auto insurance for years, and homeowners insurance, all kinds of other insurance that some of it I've never used. Did I lose money? Well, if I ever needed it, I don't want to spend $250,000. So there's a lot of things you pay into that you never get back. But every once in a while, you do.
Mhm. Okay. Well, good. Well, thank you for your time, Raymond. Appreciate it. There's so much detail. I mean, we just kind of nipped the top of the surface here, and everybody's situation is a little bit different, and would need to be analyzed. And then you have to take into consideration your own lifestyle and what are your wishes, and how do you want to spend your money. And but I would recommend having a second pair of eyes and ears with you, because it is a lot of stuff to process through. And you might even want to talk with your accountant and financial planner as a whole for packaging, or if you've got an elder law attorney as well, just to help you process it all, because one thing can affect another thing that can affect another thing, and it can be complicated. But again, if you're looking at moving forward and having your wishes and your desires preserved, this is one of those pieces that you'd want to consider on that. So again, thank you for your time with us today, Raymond.
Be my pleasure. Lori, it's been wonderful. Thank you.
Well, thank you. To our audience, I always ask you to be a giver of hope, like, click, and share. It's not that we're chasing the numbers. We never know what the algorithms are going to do anyways. And I don't trust the numbers. I know when I look in the back end anyways. But again, it doesn't take you much for time, and it doesn't cost you anything to do. And it can really help other people in your sphere, and getting people comfortable just on these conversations. That's a big hump to get over, because no one likes to think about dying and or getting ill. So again, thank you so much, and we will catch you later. Bye now.